Welcome back to my channel. My name is April. I am a singer-songwriter and music teacher, and today we are going to be talking about goosebumps. And specifically, we're going to be diving into what goosebumps are, why we get them, and how to give people goosebumps when they listen to your songs. Getting goosebumps while listening to music isn't a thing that everyone experiences. In fact, it looks like it's about between 55 and 86% of people who experience those chills or raised hairs on their arms when they listen to music. This sensation is known as frisson, which is a French word meaning aesthetic chills. Studies suggest that frisson is connected to activity in the brain's reward centers, and it's most common in people who experience music emotionally. There are lots of possible theories as to why we experience frisson, and I will link some reading/watching material below that I found interesting while I was working on this video. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to be looking at my own experiences with frisson, as well as the collective ideas of the internet as a whole. That way we can figure out what the common denominators are between all of those different songs, and we can figure out some concrete techniques to use in our own songwriting. One of the first similarities that I noticed between a lot of these different songs that commonly give people the chills is that most of them have a very intense or long or slow build-up. Most of these songs start with a sense of slow, quiet, bubbling intensity. This tension that you know can't be controlled for very long. And this feeling of slowly building tension often goes on a lot longer than you expect it to. I know that for me personally, a lot of my favorite frisson moments happen much later in the song, once I've had a lot of time to get used to that slow building intensity. And a lot of the time it happens after that intensity is broken. In a lot of songs, that tension is not actually released until the chorus at the very earliest, but sometimes a very intense bridge or guitar solo much later in the song. And that moment way later in the song, when you're finally able to be released from that tension, is so cathartic. And after all of that build-up and tension, it feels really satisfying to have a release. It's that cathartic euphoria that allows you to feel that frisson. One of the most commonly cited examples of songs that give people frisson is Imogen Heap's Hide and Seek. This song is full of gorgeous imagery and the unusual vocoder vocals with those crazy, beautiful harmonies. But the thing that I think this song does best is creating a lot of tension and build-up. It really forces the listener to wait. The emotion in her voice steadily crescendos throughout that first verse, but drops off by the time we get to the next section. The second verse is even bigger, and that emotional crescendo gets even more exciting and intense, which causes that second hide and seek to hit us even harder. We then hear her voice climb to these ridiculously high notes. These notes feel so precarious. They're so high and delicate and tense, which really catches us off guard and has us sitting right at the edge of our seats. And then of course we hear the section that is the hookiest, catchiest, most chorusy part of this song, the what you say section.
What you say, that you only meant well, 'cause you did.
But of course this section doesn't happen until about 3 minutes into the song. That's like the full length of most pop songs. I think that this is super effective, and this is a huge reason why this song gives so many people the chills. Having a great build-up is a wonderful way to give someone the chills, but some songs hit you with goosebumps right away. So how do you give someone the chills earlier in a song? A song that personally gives me the chills every single time is Nina Simone's Feeling Good. This song does have that beautiful, tension-filled build-up, but it also does something else that's really exciting. It manages to build up the tension in different ways throughout. The song is varied, and thus really surprising. In playing with your expectations, you're always caught off guard, which is going to cause you to get really excited when you hear new sections. The very first surprise we get is in the very beginning of the song, which, surprisingly, she starts a cappella.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel.
Most of the music that we listen to has some sort of musical introduction, or the music comes in at the same time as the vocals. But in this context, we're very caught off guard by the fact that there is none of that. Just this very close-sounding vocal line with lots of little twists and turns in the melody. This jazzy, improvised sound is within seconds challenging your expectations and giving you a little bit of a surprise. The second surprise comes right around the 43-second mark, when, for the first time, instruments enter the song.
And I'm feeling good.
So we've just gotten used to that a cappella sound, and then suddenly all of the instruments come in at once. The music hits us right in the gut, and our ear has to start adapting to that beautiful descending bass line, which has that really dark, intense, tension-filled feeling to it. But of course, the second that we start to get used to this line cliche, the song changes again. We get pulled right out of the groove by this chord that's not actually in the key. Right on the lyric, "It's a new life for me."
New day, it's a new life for me.
Another really cool thing about this song that adds to that feeling of frisson is the fact that the music feels directly at odds with the message of the song. The prosody is just not there. The meaning of the song, "It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good," feels really positive. It feels upbeat and exciting and happy. But the music is telling a different story. We hear that descending bass line, the minor key, and that jazzy use of seventh chords, most notably those dominant seventh chords. So because of these choices, and also the repetition of the phrase, "You know how I feel," if you've never heard the song before, you might expect it to be about anger or sorrow or pain. So that first time that you hear the phrase, "I'm feeling good," our brains fire in all of these crazy directions, and we are way more likely to get the chills. If you've seen any of my really early videos, it's pretty obvious that I am a massive Harry Potter fan. This book series, which has no author, was a huge part of my childhood, as were the accompanying films. Because of this, whenever I went to the theater, or whenever I would sit down to watch TV and there was a preview, and even still, whenever I hear that tiny melodic line, I get the chills. If you're also a fan of Harry Potter, or of Star Wars, or of Marvel, or literally any other franchise under the sun, you've probably experienced this too. This is the exact same mechanism that allows us to cry at the end of Coco when we hear "Remember Me Again," or in the musical Rent, when, spoiler alert, Collins sings "I'll Cover You," but this time, instead of singing it while holding Angel's hand, he's singing it at her funeral. So the thing to notice here is that we're hearing a piece of music that is associated very strongly with a certain emotion, so that the next time we hear that music, especially in a different context, we're already primed to feel that emotion and any compounding emotions that might be added to it the second time around. This is super easy to accomplish in films, musical theater, or even in concept albums, because there's a lot of time and space to accomplish a bunch of reprises or different melodic phrases weaving in and out. There's plenty of room for character development and plot lines and motifs, but how do we accomplish that same idea in a 3-minute pop song? In other words, how do we create familiarity when someone's hearing something for the very first time? One answer to this question is with repetition. The more often we hear a specific lyric or a specific melodic line, the more likely we are to remember it and therefore become emotionally invested. You can do this very simply by creating a catchy hook, like a chorus or a refrain line, and then by having an emotionally driven story in your verses that colors your chorus a little differently every single time you hear it. For instance, by starting on the chorus, you're not actually giving your listener any story to attach to those words. So the next time you hear the chorus after your first verse, the listener has much more grounding and can then hear the chorus a little bit differently. Some artists accomplish this familiarity by sampling other popular songs. For instance, take the Kanye West song Stronger. When he created this song, he used a sample from the Daft Punk song Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, which had been a very popular song in its own right. By sampling a song that everybody already really loved, he was able to take that collective familiarity and those positive emotions and funnel them into something brand new and interesting. Funnily enough, the Daft Punk song itself was actually also using a sample. It was a song by Edwin Birdsong called Cola Bottle Baby, and it was released in 1979. This song wasn't massively popular when it came out, but now that we have the Daft Punk song and the Kanye West song, there's this really interesting sense of continuity between the three. When you go back and listen to that original Edwin Birdsong song, you're much more likely to get Frisson, or to at least feel that sense of familiarity in a song that you haven't actually heard before. By being connected to each other, all three of these songs now have cross-generational appeal. Another great way to create this kind of familiarity in your song is to start and end on the same lyric. This is a very common technique in stand-up comedy. By starting and ending a set on the same joke, the audience has a sense of continuity, and it feels like the entire set comes full circle. So by returning to the first line of your song when you get to the end, it gives your listener that sense of comfort and closure. If you want to use this technique in your own writing, make sure to let your idea bloom throughout. A great example of this is Elliot Smith's Say Yes.
I'm in love with the world through the eyes of a girl who's still around the morning after.
And right off the bat, we assume it's probably a love song. Like, it feels pretty obvious, right? That he's in love with this person who's still around the next day. However, immediately after we hear this lyric, by saying, "We broke up a month ago." So our initial idea of what this song was going to be about is now having to be redirected. We have to change how we're thinking about it after just the first two lines. So the process we go through is wondering, who is this person? What was their relationship? Are these two going to get back together at the end of the song? Why did she leave in the first place? There are so many different things that come up from just hearing these two opening lyrics. And as he goes through this misery of losing this other person, we sort of get this hope that maybe they'll be reunited, that things will start anew, and that he'll be happy again. And I think for me anyway, it's this hope that carries us through the song. It's the thing that makes me want to keep listening. At the very end of the song, once we've had a lot of time for these ideas to marinate, he sings, "They want you or they don't. Say yes." And I'm literally getting chills just talking about it, because I think it's so beautifully stated. It's so simple. And of course, this is the moment that he chooses to go back to that opening lyric, but this time it doesn't resolve. In this moment, it feels like he's posing a question. Will you be around the morning after? The way he used this repetition in order to tie the song together really speaks to just how impressive and beautiful it is. He managed to tie these really complex thoughts and emotions into a song that's only 2 minutes long. The last way that we're going to talk about creating that familiarity in your lyrics is by creating really sense-bound images. And by that I mean you're using your senses in order to craft a story that feels like your listener can kind of sit inside of. We do talk about this a lot on this channel, but I do think it's really important to reiterate, because when you listen to a lyric that is vivid and visceral and that feels like something you can picture in your mind's eye, it allows you to really feel for those characters, and it allows you to feel empathy. The story becomes more relatable if you feel like you can belong inside of the narrative, and if you feel like you can picture everything that's happening in the story. Sense-driven imagery is also a great way to spark specific memories inside of your listener. For instance, if you're writing a breakup song and your listener has never been in a relationship, let alone had a breakup, they can still relate to things like wearing shorts in the backseat of a hot car and feeling their legs unstick from the leather. That is a ridiculously specific set of circumstances, but most people have experienced it, or at least could imagine experiencing it. And because it's so vivid and so sense-oriented, we're much more likely to connect to it, as opposed to just saying, "I felt sad when we broke up." Lady Gaga's song You and I does an excellent job of really fleshing out the scene and the characters and giving us a lot of sense-driven imagery. In this song, she does exactly the same thing that Elliot Smith did, which is that she starts and ends the song on the exact same line. She sings, "It's been a long time since I came around. It's been a long time, but I'm back in town. This time, I'm not leaving without you." And of course here we have no idea who the you is, we don't know who she is, we don't know what their relationship was. We just know that she hasn't been here in a while, and that this time, she's taken this other person with her. There's a lot of intrigue. You get really curious as a listener, wondering who these people are and what the story is. And the reason I think this song is so great is that she actually answers all of those questions. We learn about these two characters, who they are, what their relationship is, we learn about where they are and when they are, and the entire timeline of the story. We get a lot of information, but we get all of it through this beautiful sense-driven imagery. She sings lyrics like, "You taste like whiskey when you kiss me, in the corner of my bar with your high heels on." And then she sings something about lonely nights and my lipstick on your face. These images are super striking because they use multiple senses each. They're experiences that put us into the driver's seat and let us experience the story with the character. So at the end of the song, we feel like we've really gotten to know our characters, and honestly, we're rooting for them. We want them to be together. So when we hear that final lyric, "It's been a long time since I came around. It's been a long time, but I'm back in town. This time, I'm not leaving without you." We know who the you is, we know where the town is, and we know exactly what we want to happen. Now that we've watched their love story grow, it's really exciting to go back to the beginning, and it's really exciting to think about what could happen next. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course ring that little bell to be notified the next time I post.